Now, while the government has denied, of course a bit belatedly, that it has its eyes on a special dividend of 3.6 lakh crore from the Reserve Bank of India, that's RBI, this year, it's a rather weak, no, this is all a figment of the media. The fact is that the government's principal economic advisor had an extended Twitter conversation with me on this issue. And in any case, the buzz has been around and it's growing louder by the day. So perhaps Prime Minister Modi has beaten a temporary, a sort of tactical retreat after the massive backlash, but the issue perhaps is still very much on the agenda. Also, while his spin masters have been trotting out monetary theories to show how this can be done without printing fresh cash, I am unable to buy into such sophistry. To use a somewhat graphic phrase, all of that is simply putting lipstick on a pig. So now, how can Prime Minister Modi pick up his 3.6 lakh crore bounty from RBI's balance sheet? There are fundamentally just five ways he can do that. 3 fall under the asset monetization route and 2 under the print cash maneuver. Allow me therefore to give you the downstream impact of all these options. But before we list them out, let's x-ray the innards of RBI's reserves, and I'll use rounded off numbers simply for being simple. Retained stroke accumulated cash profits over several decades that have been accumulated on the balance sheet of the Reserve Bank of India, that's real cash profits, is about 3 lakh crore rupees. Revaluation of gold or foreign exchange reserves, and these are unrealized, note this word unrealized, these amount to about 7 lakh crore rupees. Now, I'll say it again, it's critical to understand the importance of unrealized here because these are non-cash gains. For example, if RBI had bought gold at say 10,000 rupees per 10 grams in 2000, then it's made an unrealized gain of rupees 15,000 per 10 grams because that's the 10 grams is about 25,000 rupees right now. Likewise, if it had bought $1 in April this year for say 65 rupees to the dollar, then it's made an unrealized gain of about 8 rupees to the dollar because it's now about 73 rupees to the dollar. But until RBI actually sells these 10 grams of gold or that $1, it does not make any cash gains or profits. And India's laws prohibit the payment of cash dividends from such unrealized gains. Please note this point. Now, let's examine each of the 5 options. Let's do that one by one. Now, these are the options, the first 3 under the asset sales route. 1. Sell gold. Now, this one is theoretically possible, but you'll agree with me that it's politically or economically suicidal. 2. It could sell government securities, GSECs, also known as government bonds, held by the Reserve Bank of India. This again is feasible but disastrous for money markets. The supply of such a large quantity of GSECs, that'll all it'll increase exponentially. Cash will get actually sucked out of the market and interest rates will rise dramatically. Once again, this is a potentially suicidal move. 3. Sell foreign exchange reserves. Now, this will expose India to dollar bankruptcy. Remember 1991? Dollar bankruptcy. And of course, it will overvalue the rupee. So, this one is not potentially, but certainly suicidal. Therefore, we now move to the 2 options under the print cash route, and that's option number 4. The government could cancel 3.6 lakh crore of GSECs and write off this loss to the reserves of 10 lakh crores on its balance sheet. And then, after cancelling, it could buy 3.6 lakh crore of fresh GSECs from the government and pay for it by printing cash. Now, see what happens. The state's debt is unchanged, stays the same. RBI's reserves are reduced by 3.6 lakh crores of the cancelled GSECs. And of course, the government gets a hold of newly printed currency. There is, of course, a fifth option, and this is a somewhat practical, you could even call it a clever variant of number 4, and this was suggested by another very distinguished expert in another one of my Twitter exchanges. Now here you simply pass 2 accounting entries on RBI's balance sheet. That is, you debit reserves, therefore reserves get lessened, and you credit a new government expense account by 3.6 lakh crores, and wow, you've just created fresh cash. In a tweak to option number 5, it has been suggested that this will be cash neutral if the government uses this additional asset to extinguish the government's liabilities, because eventually through a series of interrelated accounting adjustments of assets and liabilities in banks and Reserve Bank of India's balance sheets, all assets and liabilities will eventually get neutralized. But you know what? This is a big if. It's a big if to assume that Prime Minister Modi will use 3.6 lakh crores only to sanitize assets and liabilities on these interrelated balance sheets. Now, what if the government were to declare a universal basic income of 3,000 rupees per citizen of India? Now, I know this is an extreme assumption, and I'm using it only illustratively. But can you even imagine the amount of multiplier cash such a political gimmick could create? So, sirs and ma'ams, I think we should just accept the inevitable. The only way Reserve Bank of India can practically pay a special dividend of 3.6 lakh crore to Prime Minister Modi is by printing cash. And that's a terrible idea. And I'm not even making a very big ado here about it being an illegitimate practice which is outlawed by India's Companies Act. So whoever thought India's economic policy makers could not think of an idea worse than demonetization, that person needs to think again.